All right, we are live. Okay. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Unapologetically Uterine, our very first episode, our very first stream. Hi, Gail.
Hi, Pat. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great as well. Thank you.
I must say, you look absolutely wonderful today. I love your shirt dress. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, for those who actually have didn't see our post on social media about unapologetically uterine, so this is our kind of foray into Twitch. It's a collaboration between Safe to Choose and How to Use Abortion Pill. It's we like to think of this as like a podcast, but on Twitch, where we will be talking about all things abortion. And I also would like to introduce myself and as well as Gail. My name is Kath, and I am the comms manager from Safe to Choose. And my lovely co host is Gail.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gail, and I'm the comms officer for How to Use Abortion Pill. And we welcome you to our very first episode of this hopefully amazing journey that we are going to take with everyone here. And irrespective of your gender, I just want you to know this is a space you want to be in.
All right, so before we get into it, I also want to do a little introduction of Safe to Choose and how to use abortion pill as well. Do you want to start?
Yes. So How to Use Abortion Pill, if you've never heard of us, we are a digital brand that is focused on making sure that we provide comprehensive information on how to use the abortion pill. I think what we do is basically in our name, is that we want you to get accurate and reliable information for if you decide to have an abortion with pills in the privacy of your home. We focus mainly on self-managing your abortion without needing the assistance of a health provider.
Yes. And Safe to Choose is very similar to how to use abortion pills. I like to think of us as like sister website. Because
I agree.
so on Safe to Choose, people can go to our website safetochoose.org and find information about safe abortion, about how to use abortion pills, how to use misoprostol and mifepristone, about a lot of protocols. We have a lot of blogs talking about safe abortion, about different aspects of it. We have a lot actually. We have new blogs every Friday in multiple languages. We also have testimonial videos talking about people who got an abortion. Um, so, a lot of resources that you would want to find out when it comes to safe abortion. So, sister website to how to use abortion pill.
I think I see it as we are sort of an extension of safe to choose. Just that we target the niche abortion pills. We basically focus on just abortion pills. While there are times that I see safe to choose talk about the other types of abortion methods,
Yeah.
we are focused solely on abortion pills. And just as Kat mentioned, how to use also have series of blogs. We have now progressed to 3 blogs a week. So every week we have an English, a Spanish, and a French blog going up. So irrespective of your language, we have something for everybody. Our blog also translates into a lot of languages, so language barrier is not a problem. We have a video series on how to self-manage your abortion. It's very informative and interactive. The animations, you can go on both our website. You can see that our designers are killing it, definitely. So our animations are always very, very fun to watch. So yeah, if you do not have us, or even if you do, you should still check our website out, and it's going to be very eye-opening and informative for you.
Yeah, I actually went to see the animated series on how to use abortion pills from
Mm-hmm.
basically it's very informative. It marks the
Yeah.
journey from beginning, from finding out if you're pregnant, from finding out how the gestation period of your pregnancy up until how to use abortion pills to self-care to what happens after. So it's very super informative and I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Also, a special mention to very, very special safe abortion assistance. We have Ali, who is always available to assist you. If you feel like you don't have enough time to go through all the information we have on our website, you can chat with Ali on the website, Ali on WhatsApp. Just head over to any of our social media platforms, and you can be redirected to have a very personal chats with Ali. Ali is a boss, but trust me, you can have a very great conversation with Ali.
Yes, all right, perfect. Now I want to introduce our audience to our first episode, the topic. It is about language. So, why the language that we use matters when it comes to talking about reproductive rights, especially about abortion. The reason why I chose this topic was inspired by June and July. I can't believe we're in August already. It feels like the year just
Yeah,
began the
the
other
year is
day.
running very fast.
Yeah, exactly. It's so fast. So in June, obviously, people know it's Pride Month, and then in July,
Mhm.
it's Pride Disability Month. So, um, basically, we're dealing a lot with marginalized people, with people who are other than able-bodied and cisgender people. So I want to talk about why, when we talk about abortion, the language that we use really matters a lot, and to make sure that it's as inclusive to everyone as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a very important conversation for everyone to have, because sometimes when people think abortion, it's just very limited to the word women. So we kind of um cut out a portion of the population that are still abortion seekers, and also not including them. I mean, we are also not providing a space for them to access information that can be helpful to their journey if and when they decide to embark on an abortion. So, yeah, this is a very timely and important topic. I agree.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. As you said, when people talk about abortion, the first thing that people think about is cisgender women, right? Even the words that we use, like pregnant women, or when we say that women get an abortion, or women get pregnant, or even things like it's normal for women to menstruate, right? Things like that. The language that is very heteronormative, very exclusive to cisgender women. But the thing is, abortion reproductive rights is more than about cisgender women. It's about the LGBTIQ plus community. It's about women and people with disabilities as well. That's why
Mm-hmm.
we are bringing this up and hopefully opening a conversation about why the language that we use really matters, while at the same time also acknowledging that there is a lot of criticisms around this inclusive and gender neutral languages. And i I also want to bring that up because there are some there are concerns from people who are not being malicious or anything, but they have genuine concerns about that. So we also want to hear what they have to say as well. All right, so I want to talk about cultural context to begin with because
Mm-hmm.
you're from a completely different continent than me, and I'm based in Cambodia, so different cultural context, different progress, different where we are in terms of using inclusive language. It's all different. So I want to begin by talking about the cultural context in your region. So what do you think about
Mhm.
gender neutral language, and how is it used, and how is it even received in your region, Gail?
Ooh, that's I feel like that needs a lot of unpacking because I'm in Ghana, so I feel like I can talk on behalf of Africa as a continent in general. And I think I can boldly say there's barely any culture here that creates space for anybody outside the gender roles, men and women. People don't really embrace anything that is outside men and women. So the moment any conversation like that comes up, you get weird looks. People, I think recently, just to make it more factual, there's this whole thing going on Twitter in Ghana where a non-binary individual he addresses himself with his pronouns as they them, has taken it on himself to kind of weed out homophobic individuals and the backlash he's getting just because he chooses not to identify as a he. So in their eyes, just because of our culture, he's supposed to be a male. So he should just be referred to as a he. But this person has also chosen not to be a he. This person decides that they want to be referred to as they them. And people are so angry about it. He's getting death threats and so many things. That people are beaten up, assaulted just because of that. And there are no laws. There's nothing legal that binds others from inflicting any sort of harassment on anybody outside the heteronormative men and women. So it's not a good conversation in this part. There's no progress on it, honestly. I think for this part of my world, we are living in the old age. That's generally sums it up. It's not a great conversation to be had here. So there's no progress at all. There's no space for anybody in the LGBTQIA plus community. There's nothing like that at all. What
Right.
about you, Kat?
Um, wow, that was really heavy, and I think it.
Yeah, it's sad. It's very very sad. Um, sorry for cutting you off, but every other day on social media, you will see a video. And sometimes it's more sad because yeah, people actually record themselves doing these acts onto the people in the LGBTQ community, and they don't care because there's no consequence. Like there's no law that states that this person can be arrested. The parliament in Ghana is actually working right now on passing a family amendment law, whatever, and that makes homosexuality illegal in Ghana. So you could be arrested for it. So things are really, really harsh in this. It's not easy.
That is so sad to me. It's so disheartening, and
Yeah.
it's just how can you criminalize someone just for being who they are, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
not really harming anybody. They're just living their true self, and they are being punished for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's very sad because I have friends who are in that community, and when I see how they live their lives, it just I'm getting a bit emotional right now because it's a very tough situation that I could go out with my partner just because I'm not in the community, but they can never do that. They can never freely express themselves because there's always the fear of somebody attacking them. Even if it's not physical, they get verbally abused on social media. The messages they get is it's crazy, and nobody does anything about it because nobody cares. And I think part of our issue too is that we are very um, religious. So currently, there's a church in Ghana called the Church of Pentecost. It's not just in Ghana, but the Church of Pentecost in Ghana is like one of the champions of the law legalizing homosexuality. And this is a church with very powerful people in it, powerful people in the country. So they seem to be doing whatever they want with no consequence. They're actually building a prison right now. And while building the prison, they are also the biggest advocate for criminalizing homosexuality, that we could go to jail. So now, in everybody's mind, okay, it feels like this prison yard building is just geared towards getting these people in there, and these people are not doing anything wrong. They're just living their lives as individuals. It's a whole conversation that will probably never end if we keep going into it. But in Ghana, it's sad. It's no space for anybody in the LGBTQ community, even when they create spaces for themselves that they can go to. People find ways to find out and insert themselves into those spaces so that it becomes unsafe for them. There have been instances where houses have been burnt or they've gone there to beat up people just because they made it a safe space for LGBTQ people to hang out at. So it's it's crazy, honestly. Sad.
It is, it is. I do have a question though. Has there been any
Mm-hmm.
movement on trying to create a, even the language, basically our topic, have has there been any movement in trying to advocate for a more inclusive language to include people of other genders?
No, nothing of that sort. Because it looks like right now they are already fighting for the fact that their sexual preferences are seen to be abnormal. So the language you think seems more far-fetched because telling someone, oh, I don't want to be addressed as a he or she, or a woman or a man, is just, it's, they just don't understand it. I think that's the, and even for the educated people who you think should understand it, they just don't want to create space for understanding. So the language is even more far-fetched than just the idea of them existing. It's there's really no space for it here.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. Wow. Um, I feel like for me, I'm more privileged, and I don't want to say lucky because it's it doesn't even sound like you should be lucky to be able to live in a place where it's okay for you, or at least it's not as harsh to be who you are. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
say lucky because that sounds so unfair, but
Yeah.
um in Cambodia, it's been getting better for the LGBTIQ plus community. There has been more support, but at the same time, the opposition, people who are homophobic, people who are transphobic, have also been gaining, have been becoming more vocal in expressing their bigotry, expressing their hatred. But at the same time, the LGBTIQ plus community has also been getting more support. We fortunately don't have any laws criminalizing homosexuality, but at the same time, we also don't have laws that support homosexuality or same sex marriage or anything like that. Um, it's sad to even say that at least they're not punished for it because that shouldn't be
Yeah.
how it is, right? Um, but I think that with when it comes to language that we use here, people are still using very heteronormative, very traditional, I would say, very exclusive language, saying pregnant women, saying, and this is what we're gonna be getting into in a bit, an even more controversial word, which is breastfeeding,
Mm-hmm.
or marriage is for a man and a woman, so very heteronormative. For me, I have been trying to advocate for a more inclusive language, but I feel like because of the education level, and I'm not talking about whether they go to college or not, but I'm talking about the awareness level of people when it comes to more gender neutral language like that. I've been trying to say, for example, pregnant people or people with vagina, people with penis. It's longer to say, for one, it's longer than to just say men and women, right? You have to say people with vagina or people with penis or people with uterus. It's longer, and some people might view it as an inconvenience. That's why they don't use it. And the other problem is that, and I have talked to my friends about this, what they think of me is starting to use this language. They say that people who don't have this level of understanding might get confused. They might not understand what I'm talking about. Like, what do you mean, people with penis? What are you talking about? Just say
Yeah.
men. So I feel like there's a gap there in terms of the understanding of the usage of this kind of level, and it might create a misunderstanding. It might create a miscommunication, but at the same time, I think it's very important to start somewhere. We need to start somewhere. We can't just say because it's so inconvenient that we're not going to do it at all, because then
Yeah.
we are excluding a lot of the population of the marginalized communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. Um, I think, yeah, so just as you said, it's the most that there are people outside what they know. And because there's no awareness, there's not much awareness about the language, people are just not willing to accept it that okay, this is what it is, and it's okay for me not to say women, say people with vagina, and for me not to say pregnant woman, but say pregnant people. People are just not understanding that. I've seen a couple of posts on social media where when such language is used, you see a lot of people trying to be controversial, maybe not intentionally, but to them, you are taking things too far. And now there's this whole narrative of people being too sensitive because they can't be referred to as women and men. It's it's a whole other thing because and sometimes it makes me feel like these people are sort of living under a bit of a cloud, like they are sheltered and they're not ready to leave what they have and try to open themselves up to other experiences in the world. It's hard, but like you said, yeah, we do have to start somewhere, and it's hard for one person, and then another person could join. So even though it's not being accepted, I think it's definitely something we need to do more, and hopefully other people can also pick up on it, and we can all push the agenda.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I do think that people need to think about cultural context when talking about
Mm-hmm.
enforcing more inclusive language, because as we just said, in certain regions in Africa, for example, um, inclusive language is not taken as is not received as well as, for example,
No.
say the US or in the West
Mm-hmm.
or in Europe.
Yeah.
Not to say that those countries are very accepting of those kind of language, but the levels are different. So when we're trying to enforce or trying to advocate for that, we do need to keep different region, different cultural context in mind. For example, even the different languages, right? English, it can be, I would say, easier to be more inclusive and gender neutral than compared to, say, Spanish, because Spanish and
Mm-hmm.
French are very, very gendered, right? So, how do you try to dismantle this language that has been around, that the foundation has been set for thousands of years? How do you try to
Yeah,
dismantle that and make it gender neutral? It's very difficult.
yeah, yeah. I get that. It's I think for Spanish especially. I mean English, there are times that you can put a couple of things together. But like you mentioned, I don't know any Spanish, but I do know from a couple of content I review that yes, I mean there are sometimes that when I get help from my program manager who is Spanish speaking, he makes statements like, "Oh, we need to change this word because it's it's supposed to be feminine. It's supposed to be a feminine word. It's understood in a feminine way. And in doing all that, then unconsciously we are still cutting some people off. But like you said, this is language that has been there for centuries and the foundation has already been built. How do you just change that? English is a bit flexible, but when it comes to Spanish, it's I think it's not going to be an easy thing to do. That's for sure. But we just have to try, do our best, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there are so
Mhm.
many challenges when it comes to trying to be more inclusive in the language that we use. So let's talk about why it matters. Why do we try
Yeah.
so hard to do this? Why do we try so hard to enforce or to encourage inclusive language? Why do we have to do this?
Uh, Personally, and even in a professional setting, I think times have changed, and people are changing with it. If if we don't create a space where people are comfortable, then we are just sort of cutting them off from accessing certain things. If if we don't put inclusive language out there, it just means we are limiting the content we put out to very specific people. And it puts the rest of them at a disadvantage, irrespective of whether it's a large group or a small group. Our target is to provide information and service people all over the globe who are abortion seekers. So using language that is limiting, it just means we are definitely not hitting targets.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I think for me, to put it simply, because everyone deserves to be seen and everyone deserves to be included, it's very,
Yeah.
very simple. We're all humans, right? So why is it that some people are included and some people are excluded just because of their gender, just because of their genitals, their sex, or their bodies, a physical body? It shouldn't be like that. Everyone should feel included and seen and heard. Um, I'm gonna give an example. This is not really related to reproductive rights or anything, but it's related to representation and how it feels to be seen. I remember when I was young, I used to love watching Disney Channel, and I
Mhm.
a lot of pop culture basically, not just that. And I remember thinking to myself, seeing all these pop cultures, these movies and shows that are predominantly about white people, right? White
Mhm.
people, and the main cast would have blonde hair and blue eyes. And I was in my early teen, and I remember looking at that and thinking, do I have to look like that to be the star? Do I have to look like that to have all these interesting things happening to me? And I remember at one point I actually thought maybe I should go dye my hair blonde and try to get colored contact lens just so that I can be the main character in my story, you know? That's because I didn't
And
have any That's because I didn't have any representation at all. So I think this is why it's so important, right? It is funny. Looking back on it on it
Yeah.
now, I just think it's funny that I thought like
Yes.
that.
I, I think so. For your example, for instance, what it does is also distorts the reality for people like you. Then you start questioning yourself, start questioning your existence, and everything that has to do with you. It's unfair. It's unfair not to be inclusive. That's basically the thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I So that's why I always try to advocate for that, because I believe that everyone should feel seen. Everyone should be the main character in their story as well. Everyone
Yes,
should feel like that.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Everybody needs to have main character energy. It shouldn't just be prioritized for some people just because they look a certain way that fits the societal value or whatever. Everybody needs to be included. They deserve to be included, like we said, and seen and heard. So I think we should be putting more effort into creating platforms that champions these things so that people who are feeling as if they are not part of the world can also find a safe space in places like that.
Yeah, and I saw a comment by feminist players saying that I can relate to that. I believe that many people can relate to that, especially marginalized people. Now, I want to bring us into this small segment called
Mhm.
Abortion Alchemy. So, this small section, we will be talking about statistics and facts. I love talking about statistics and facts. But with this one, we will be talking about statistics and facts about abortion for people who are not cisgender women. So, all these statistics are from human rights Human Rights Campaign. So these statistics about abortion is actually very surprising to me. When I saw it for the first time, I was very shocked, because I haven't heard about this. I don't think that a lot of people have shared all these. So the first one is that lesbian 22.8% and bisexual 27.2%, women who have been pregnant are more likely than heterosexual women 15.4%, who have been pregnant to have had an abortion. So lesbian and bisexual women who have been pregnant are more likely than heterosexual women to have had an
Mhm.
abortion. It's This is why it's so important. And the second statistics is that,
That, that's an interesting fact.
yeah, and the second statistics is that over half of lesbian women who have been pregnant and two-thirds of bisexual women who have been pregnant have ever had a mistimed pregnancy. So we can see that more lesbian women and more bisexual women have actually had mistimed pregnancy and have had abortion more than heterosexual women. Over a third of lesbian women report ever having an unwanted pregnancy. A third of lesbian women. It's When I presented this statistic to people, everyone was so surprised by that. Like pregnant women, lesbian women having unwanted pregnancy more than heterosexual women. But when you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because
How you would wonder how. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's why it's so important that we start looking at it from a different lens, because it's not just about heterosexual women, but even lesbian women also get an abortion. They also have unplanned pregnancy as well. And the last statistics that I am going to present is that 36% of transgendered people who have ever been pregnant had considered attempting to end their pregnancy by themselves without clinical supervision because of a myriad of reasons. 36% of transgender people. And I think that this comes to the whole point about men can also have an abortion. Men can also have an
Mm-hmm.
unwanted pregnancy.
I can.
Hi, Gail, are you still here? Are you still with us?
Hi, yes, I am.
Okay.
I am. I'm,
Too shocked.
I'm sort of taking, yes,
Processing
I'm
it.
sort of taking everything in because I, even though we are doing this, I still like, sort of a learning curve going on just because of the environment I grew up in. So I'm now trying to open myself more. So some of these facts interesting and surprising to me because now I'm thinking, and I'm sure it's not just me. I'm sure others will be thinking, how is it that men are able to miss pregnancies and how are lesbians missing having abortions? Like, how is that possible? And I think it's reasonable for bisexual women because I mean they are moving both ways, so it makes sense. But when you think about all these new statistics, not I mean not so new, but it's not information that is readily available to people unless you decide to search for it, of course. But because we don't create a space where um, it's inclusive for that community, hence like these are not very visible for people to see. And it also goes back to why the language matters. So if we decide not to be inclusive, then it means we are leaving all these people out of the message we are putting out there. It means we are not providing any sort of help for them. There's also no space for them to address the issues that they go through just because they don't fit what society thinks is normal. So yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think one of the reasons, and this is only a theory on my part, I haven't read any
Mhm.
research on this yet, but I think one of the reasons why lesbian women have more unwanted, keyword here, unwanted pregnancy than heterosexual women is because of sexual assault. So we know about how in many parts of the world, lesbian women are forced to convert by being assaulted by family members, by other people, by other men. That would cause unwanted pregnancy, right? Which is why they have more abortion because they are experiencing that kind of violence. But again, this is a theory on my part because I've seen this happening in many places, including in my country as well.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Um, and I think it's also interesting because usually when people who are anti-choice think about abortion, to them, if you are having an abortion, you are irresponsible. I think that's one of the biggest myths surrounding why people get abortion, coming from an anti-choice perspective. I get a lot of that on my TikTok when people are asking for abortion help. You get people in the comment section telling them how they are irresponsible and if they know they're not ready for pregnancy, then they shouldn't have sex and all these things. And it feels like they never factor the fact that people get pregnant from sexual assault into the equation. So yeah, it's sad and it's also interesting how things work for people in general. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many reasons why a person would choose to get an abortion. And at the end of the day, whatever reason it is, it's their choice. And it should always be their choice.
Yeah, and it's very valid. Whatever reason they have for wanting to have the abortion, it's valid. And yeah, it just boils down to what they want and what they need in that point of their life.
Yeah, perfect. All right. As promised in the beginning of this episode, I said that we would be addressing the criticisms of inclusive language or gender neutral language. Now, I am going to read a criticism, an argument, let's say, from a former editor for a newspaper. And I want to see what you think of this, Gail. So they said that the noble intent behind omitting the word women is to make room for the relatively tiny number of transgender men and people identifying as non binary who retain aspects of female biological function and can conceive, give birth, or breastfeed. Some of these women, I think, remember when women had to struggle to get women into the foreground of the conversation, and that's a very difficult memory to suppress. That's generational thing I can understand. So essentially, they're saying that by using the word pregnant people, by using all these inclusive language, gender neutral language, we are erasing women from the conversation. We are taking away space from women that we fought so hard for. So, what do you think?
So objectively, I think what they are saying is valid. I get them. But also on the other hand, why aren't women feeling like they are under that bracket? That's a question I also ask myself. I do understand that there's been decades of fight for women to have space, and I don't think when we are inclusive, our aim is to erase women. We are just also trying to create space for other people. So I feel like I wish they would understand it in the term that it's a bracket phrase sort of. Let me say people with vagina. Let me say pregnant people. It's not we are not taking women out of the equation. It's just a bracket. It's like an umbrella term sort of for women and for people who identify as women and people who identify as any other thing. So I hear them, I hear their voice and I get it. But why are we also trying to kind of stifle people in a way that we experienced a while ago? And you get my point too.
Yeah, I think I heard someone put this very nicely, and I always remember this. They say rights is not like a pie. It's not that you take a piece and then suddenly the pie gets smaller for other people. It's not limited like that. Rights should be for everyone. In the same way, the space is not limited. It shouldn't just be, okay, you have this limited amount of space where either women can occupy it or men occupy it, or if people who identify as neither occupy it, then there's no more room for women. I think there's room for everyone. It's not limited. There's space for everyone. But just like you said, I understand where they're coming from, and I think that a lot of people really take pride in parenthood, in motherhood, that when they so it's kind of like they're proud to be a woman, right? And they're proud that they are able to give birth and get pregnant, and I think that it's being able to being able to get pregnant and being able to give birth and actually having children is a wonderful thing. It's not for everyone, but it's a wonderful thing. You're sacrificing a lot, so that makes them proud, that makes them proud of themselves, their body, and that's why they feel like if you say birthing people, then you're taking away that from them, you're taking away that label of being a pregnant woman from them. But for me, i I do want to reiterate what I said, that you have space for everyone. The space is not limited. We have space for women, we have space for people who don't identify as women, we have space for non binary people, we have space for everyone. We can share, it's okay.
definitely. It's okay. And I really hope more people who identify as women will come to see things from the general point of view. There really is space for everybody, and right now it's yeah, the space is feeling like it's not big enough to contain these other people who don't identify as women and men. And in trying to sort of monopolize the space, we are also stifling them and their existence. And like I said earlier, you've this is something that women have been through. Like you've been there, you know how it felt. How is it also so difficult to try and create space for other people? Being
Exactly.
that you've been in their position, you've been there. It was not great for you. That's why you spent so many decades fighting for it. There's nothing that says that you can't have the space and then also create some space for other people. Alright, it just feels like women are trying to monopolize things and it's women's rights. It can be people's rights. Why does it have to be limited to women's rights, not people's rights? I think that's probably these are some of the questions women need to be asking themselves. I'm a woman. I identify as a woman, but I also understand the need to create space for people who do not understand, people who do not identify as what I identify as. I also understand that it does not take anything from me. It's I'm me. They are them. Then me creating a bit of space for them to be able to exist as themselves does not take anything away from me. So women need to be more womanly, I think. 'Cause I feel like the whole woman thing also comes with this feminine and even motherhood. Motherhood comes with this nurturing um, assignment or something like that. And I think women should be more receptive towards other people just because it's easier proud to be a mother. You should also be trying to create space for people because part of motherhood is kind of taking your selfishness out and creating space for another person. So why is it so hard? I don't know if my friend is in that as well, but yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I completely agree. Right. So, before we end this episode, I want to talk about what we can do to be more inclusive. Now, I want to this is twofold. One is what have we been doing to be more inclusive as individual, you and I, and at the same time as safe to choose and as how to use as organizations, what have we been doing to be more inclusive? And the second part is what can the average person do to be more inclusive?
So for that one, what I have been doing personally to be more inclusive, I like I said earlier, I my culture is very different. So until not so long ago, I didn't even understand the concept of there being genders that are not women and men. So it did take me a while, but after education and more awareness, I'm learning how to create a space for these people by trying to understand them. If somebody tells me that they do not want to be addressed as a man, I don't go ahead to address them as a man just because physically I'm seeing them as a man. I try to make them comfortable by giving them what they want. Basically, it's again, it doesn't take anything from me. If I meet someone and they tell me they want to be addressed as I don't have to go out of my way to say, oh, she or he, just because I'm trying to assign a gender role to them. So personally, that's what I do. And professionally, like we've already mentioned, we avoid using words that limits our language. like women and men, like you mentioned, using phrases like pregnant people, birthing people. It's it gives the minority the comfort they need and seek in these times. It just creates a more inclusive environment for them. What about you, Kai?
So, what I have been doing on an individual level, in case you're wondering what's back here, it's my dog. So, what have I been doing as an individual when it comes to being more inclusive is I have been trying to modify the language that I use in everyday conversation by including, by using words like pregnant people, or like I said, people with penis, people with vagina. In Cambodia, we speak our language, our native language, which is Khmer. And I try to modify that in my everyday usage to be more inclusive. And as part of an organization and professionally, what I have been doing is trying to be more inclusive in every aspect, not just in the language that we use, but in the imagery that we are projecting to people to make sure that people can see themselves, people can feel like we are talking to them and not just other people, other group of people that don't include them. So basically doing everything that we can to make them feel heard, feel seen, feel valued, and I guess basically be mindful and be respectful and always listening to them. I think listening to people who are other than you is very important because they have the lived experience. I can read all I want about what it's like for the LGBTIQ plus community, for people with disabilities, for indigenous people, but those are just things that I can read, but I don't have the lived experience of what it's like. That's why it's so valuable for people, for us to step outside of our comfort zone and interact with people who don't look like us, people who don't belong in our community, and start to hear their perspective, listen to their stories. That's how you build empathy.
Yeah, that's very true. Um, and I agree with listening to people who have lived the experiences. It's very important because if you've not lived as an LGBTQ person, you can't you can relate. But even when you're addressing certain things, you definitely won't be coming from the same perspective as someone who was actually in the situation. So yeah, that's
Yeah. All right.
I think the next part is what can an average person do to be
Yes.
more inclusive. Um, I feel like it's like kind of a summary of everything we just said. So, like Kat, you mentioned, listening to people in the community, um, and just not even going out of your way per se, but just trying to create space where they are able to talk to you about the experiences they are living and how you can, in your own very small way, make it better and inclusive for them with your language, with how you act around them, how you act when they're not around, and all that. Kat, what about you?
Basically, I would just say it very short and say be empathetic and be compassionate. Just build your empathy and be more empathetic towards other people and be
Mhm.
respectful of them.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
All right, before we end this episode, where can people find Safe to Choose and how to use abortion pills? Again, um, okay, you go first.
Okay. So you can find us how to use abortion pill, full name, how to use abortion pill on Facebook. You can find us HTU abortion pill on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok as ATU abortion pill. And You can also visit us on our website, howtouseabortionpill.org, and then you get all the information you need. And now, either bi-weekly or monthly, you can also find us on Twitch and Discord as Unapologetically Uterine. Kat, over to you for safe to choose.
So you can find Safe to Choose at safetochoose.org, where again we have all the information about safe abortion. You can also speak to our counselors, who will be there to provide you all the information that you need, will be there for you to guide you through and just to hold your hands virtually. So they are multilingual. So whatever language that you speak, most likely you will find a counselor at Safe to Choose who will also speak that language. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube at Safe to Choose. We also have accounts in French, so Safe to Choose underscore FR French, and Portuguese, and you can also find our Spanish social media as well at Ayuda para Abortar. And also our Spanish website is ayudaparabortar.org.
Yes, and Kat, I think this is a question I've often been meaning to ask. The counselors, do they have a working time during the day? Because I think there's been a couple of instances where when I redirect people to safely choose, they come back and depending on the time they are texting that, oh, there's no response or anything like that. So I just for general populace, is there a time frame for getting to talk with a counselor?
Yeah, so there are certain times, but our counselors, when they are online, you will be able to reach them. They will see the messages, and we are compiling a video. We're doing a video on basically the step by step on how to contact our counselors and what to do if they are offline. So stay tuned for that video to, because I know that some people are wondering what happens if the counselors are not online. So we will put out that video. Stay tuned. Follow us on our social media to get the instruction on what to do when you get in touch with us.
Right. Thank you. I'm looking forward to that video so that I can share with my audience.
Thank you so much, and
Okay.
thank you, Gail, for
Thank you
this
too.
for this
Thank you,
wonderful
guys.
conversation. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this first episode of our uh, Twitch podcast. I will just call it that.
Yay. Yes.
I will see all of you in the next episode. Take care and have a nice day wherever you are.
Have a nice
Bye.
day, everyone. Bye.